The Saturna Island crash brings up painful memories for several families in Campbell River. They are the relatives of 5 men who lost their lives in a floatplane crash off Quadra Island. That happened more than 4 years ago. That crash was also in a DeHavilland Beaver, and to this day, families are still searching for answers. They are also fighting for tighter safety regulations for the entire air taxi industry. A News reporter Gord Kurbis has the story.
It's been almost 5 years since Kirsten Stevens lost her husband Dave in a tragic floatplane accident off of Quadra Island. To this day, she still worries about the safety of those on board aircraft she sees taking off or flying overhead. What's worse is when she hears news of crashes like the one yesterday.
Every time, whether it goes down or it's missing or whatever the circumstances, it always hits home, and I always feel tremendous empathy. It's a horrible place to be.
Dave was one of 5 men on board this DeHavilland Beaver that went down shortly after takeoff from this Campbell River dock. All of the men were presumed killed, and his body was the only one ever recovered. Kirsten has been championing greater safety in the air taxi industry ever since.
We will never know exactly what happened, but that doesn't change the fact that we can still try and stand up for changes in the system so that such things can't happen again.
On April 21st, Stevens traveled to Ottawa to take part in a roundtable discussion on aviation safety. She was disappointed with the lack of attendance by members of Parliament or senators. She's also critical of Transport Canada.
This is the sector that Transport Canada tends to ignore. And even though safety management systems has not been implemented into this sector, they've already canceled the frequency of inspection policy and the national audit policy and various oversight plans which have to do with this sector.
Since taking part in that roundtable task force, Stevens has begun tracking every aviation crash in Canada. She says yesterday's tragedy was the 26th fatal occurrence since April, and so far 45 people have lost their lives.
Most people, when they think about airplanes, they think about Air Canada, they think about Jazz, they think about WestJet, and they don't think about these small float planes or small air taxis. They're used a lot, and especially here on the BC coast, and because it is so remote, then it becomes much more difficult for Transport Canada effectively oversee the industry.
Stevens is maintaining a website to keep people informed of Canada's float plane crashes. That will include information on the Saturna crash, the cause of which hasn't been determined yet. That's available at www.safeskies.ca. In Campbell River, Gord Kurbis, A News.